Hi, on the programme this week there is a theme, and it's this: prestige cars with a twist. Ian Royle has gone completely nuts. He's been pitching a Mercedes against a Porsche, which might not sound too crazy until you realise that the Mercedes in question is the M-Class, big 4x4 relative of this fella, whilst the Porsche is the little two-seater Boxster. So a big off-roader against a small two-seater sports car. Ian reckons the link is that they're both lifestyle choice cars. See what you think. But first of all, another prestige brand when I take a fresh look at that old favourite of the rep, the BMW 3 Series. But this time, it's the new Cabriolet. Hooray! At last, a BMW bike. Mind you, it'll still set you back 2,100 quid. Now, let me just press this button here. Now, if you reckon that BMW is a little underpowered, driven as it is by these two knotted pieces of string I call legs, then this BMW certainly isn't, because it's powered by a new 3-litre engine available throughout their range, but we've decided to test it in this 3 Series Cabriolet. For the simple reason you can still experience the same wind in your hair as on the bike, if not wind on your knees. The new engine is a straight 6, hardly a surprise. BMW have been making them for 85 years and they do give excellent smoothness. It started life, this unit, as a 2.5, then it grew to a 2.8 litre and now it's a 3 litre. Power is up from 193 brake horsepower to 231, which is quite a hike actually, as is torque up, and the important thing is 90% of the torque is available from 1500 RPM. In English, that means loads of mid-range power, which makes it very easy to drive pretty quickly. Whilst there's no doubt this is certainly no M3, and on paper the M3 would have it beaten, in day-to-day life, from one point to another on country roads, I reckon my money would be on this. It would certainly be the easier drive to get anywhere in a hurry. One characteristic you'd expect to find in nearly all of the bigger 4-seater convertibles is scuttle shake. No, it's not a 70s disco dance, it's actually to do with the rigidity of the car. Think about it, you chop the roof off, that's a big old lump of tin that used to be there to brace it, and as a result, without it, the whole thing can twist and shake, which makes it very difficult for the suspension to cope. Well, in this, they've actually improved it by 20% over the previous convertible, which is already pretty good, so it's not at all bad. That said, there's no way is it ever going to be as good as the tin top, coupe or saloon. BMW bang on about their cars being driver's car and rear-wheel drive being the best thing for real drivers. But the other important point is sitting in the cabin, everything's aimed at me. Literally, everything's pointing at me, the driver. I'm the important one. Down on the fascia in the center console, everything's aimed at me. Even the steering wheel is specially for me. I've got special controls for everything, and it looks and feels great. I feel important. And here's something really clever. In any soft top, you're going to lose a bit of boot space because when the top itself is down, it's got to go somewhere, and usually they cut into your boot space area, so we lose a bit here. And that's the case with the BMW. But, and this is where it's clever, if you're going to leave your top up and you're going away, you want to put a few suitcases in it, lift this lever, push it here, Compress that space, and voila, we have more boot space. Clever. In fact, this could be said to be one of your few chances to please everybody in life. For the show-off in you, well, it's a convertible, isn't it? Drop top. For the family man or woman, it's a four-seater. Very practical. For the accountant, BMW convertibles hold their value very well. For the driver, well, it's rear-wheel drive with that fantastic new 3-litre engine, a real peach. For the snob, well, it's a BMW badge, isn't it? That said, it's not perfect, because it can't be said to be class-leading in every one of those fields, but it is quite probably the best compromise. And life is, after all, about compromise. Otherwise, Einstein would have been born looking like Marilyn Monroe.
Cars tend to fit neatly into their own nice little categories. You know the kind of thing. Compact city cars, sensible saloons, ravishing little roadsters. A car to suit the kind of person you are and the type of life you lead. And this is what Toyota have come up with, a model that's now sportier, sexier and has a roof that comes down, which means they've done away with the T-top of old. And the price? Well, there's good news there because that's come down just like the roof. At £18,495, it's £4,000 cheaper than the previous model, bringing it in line with the MGF and the MX-5. However, a car in the roadster market has to look right, and there's no denying that this new MR2 is a striking car to look at, but original it isn't. The wheel arches wouldn't look out of place on an Audi TT, and there is definitely a touch of the Porsche Boxster around the rear. It would have been nice to see some of the innovation that went into the new Celica in the lines of the MR2. But it's once you get inside that you realise Toyota's designers have completely lost the plot. They couldn't decide what look they were going for, so they've chucked the lot in. You've got deep dials like you'll find in the 156. There's an influence from the Audi TT and certainly from Toyota's Celica. And just look, the dashboard has developed lovely dimples and cellulite. And as for these nice plastic grab handles, well, I'm sorry, but they're straight out of a disabled toilet. The whole feeling is dull and there's far too much black. But I can forgive all of this if the car is as much fun to drive as they promise it's going to be. The good news is that it is. It feels fantastic. Like its predecessors, it's mid-engined and rear-wheel drive, but with less weight this time, the car feels a lot more agile. The weight distribution really is excellent and you feel the benefits behind the wheel. The ride feels very stable, there's a lovely feeling of balance, and at the same time you're getting that fantastic feedback and response from the steering. And the stats from the engine are pretty impressive too. The 1.8 litre engine with Toyota's VVTi variable valve timing has plenty of mid-range torque, enough to propel this car from 0 to 60 in a little under 8 seconds and onto a top speed of 130 miles an hour. It doesn't actually feel that quick off the mark. The mid-range performance is great, but there's certainly a bit of a lull when you try for a quick getaway. But never mind, this is a great car to drive out on the open road. On a lovely sunny day, it's perfect motoring. On the face of it, the MR2 seems like a pretty good car, but the one thing that really lets it down is the appalling lack of any luggage space. Now, of course, it's mid-engine, so there's no boot. There is space at the front, but that's made absolutely tiny by the fact that the space saver just about fills it up. So that really leaves you with 2 cubby holes behind the seats. And they're so small that you'd struggle to fit a bag of shopping in, let alone an overnight bag. It makes the MR2 a very impractical car to buy, and future owners will have to think really carefully about it before they decide to buy one. But is the MR2 enough of a driver's car to make up for the fact that it really is so impractical? Well, I'm afraid the answer is no. It's a great fun car to drive, but it doesn't have the raw appeal or the skilled handling of something like the Elise. And while it is without doubt a better drive than either the MX-5 or the MGF, it doesn't offer the all-round practicality that both of those two can.
Now, when you think of coupes, you think sleek, sexy, sophisticated. Green? Yes, this is the new Hyundai Coupe. The old Coupe was really quite sexy and very affordable. It bridged the gap between cheap, tacky wannabes and cars like the Peugeot 406 Coupe. It was economical, fun to drive, and it sailed along looking quite nice. This revised coupe has gained a radically sculptured bonnet and wings, new front and rear bumpers, and of course the inspiring light assembly at the front, bearing a striking resemblance to the former Toyota Celica. You do get 15-inch alloy wheels, but as with the old models, they do tend to look a bit lost in the coupe's massive wheel arches. Around town, it's quite impressive, leaving most boy racers eating your dust. Only one complaint though, when it comes to city driving, the turning circle is terrible, doubling the standard 3-point turn into a tiresome 6. Once you're on the move, this car does actually handle quite nicely. It feels safe even in the sharpest of bends with very little body roll. The braking is very responsive, and that's thanks to brake discs on all 4 wheels. But what does it for me is the smooth gearbox, reminding me ever so slightly of the Audi TT. As in most coupes, with the exception of a few, there isn't much legroom for passengers sitting in the back. However, once in the driver's seat, the revamped interior gives a very spacious feel. The seats are fully adjustable, giving a very comfortable driving position. However, I do find the steering wheel a tad on the large side. Now, Hyundai have done away with the black plastic and put silver in its place, which really isn't that bad. The dials are clearly visible and in keeping with the car's sporty image. Hyundai say they've only made a few mechanical alterations to improve drivability and refinement. Extra soundproofing has been added to improve low-speed engine noise, but when pushed hard or even driving fast, the engine becomes coarse sounding and it can be off-putting, especially on a long drive. This sleek green mean machine boasts Hyundai's 137 brake horsepower 2-litre version of the Beta engine carried straight from the original coupe, while the 1.6 boasts a newly developed Alpha engine. This, the 2-litre SE, will reach 0 to 60 in just over 9 seconds and produces a top speed of 124 miles per hour. Not extremely fast, you may be saying, but when put together with its fine road handling, 2-tone leather, alloy wheels, air conditioning and CD, not forgetting the Porsche-tuned suspension, you don't feel shortchanged with a price tag of £17,400. Shortchanged, maybe not, but a colour change, maybe.
After the break, we're keeping it posh when Ian Royle takes a look at 2 very different cars with more in common than you might think. They are the Mercedes M-Class and the Porsche Boxster.
Now, I'd like to pose a question to you. If you had, say, £43,000 to spend on a new car, which is a lot of money, what sort of vehicle would you buy? Well, no doubt it would be an aspirational vehicle. It might be a prestigious manufacturer, a sports car, a luxury saloon, or a 4x4 off-road vehicle. Now, you might go for either of these 2. First of all, the Mercedes ML430 or the Porsche Boxster S. They cost about the same sort of money. Now, if you have kids, then you've got to go for something like this, for instance, because that's a pure 2-seater. But if you haven't got kids and you've got that sort of money to spend, do you go for a 4x4 off-road luxury vehicle or an open-top car that has lots and lots of fun motoring in prospect? This is going to be a tough decision, I can see. Mercedes introduced their M-Class some 2 years ago, initially with a 3.2-litre engine. But the cry went up, give us more power, give us a car that can really compete with the creme de la creme of off-roaders, the Range Rover. So the ML430 arrived with an 8-cylinder engine and 268 brake horsepower under the bonnet. I've begun to notice in the more fashionable parts of our towns and cities that the M-Class seems to be taking over as the ultimate off-road status symbol from the Range Rover, particularly on the school run, for instance. And it's a car that goes pretty quick, actually. If you want to have a bit of fun, you can. 0 to 60 comes up in under 8 seconds, a top speed of 130 miles an hour. Unsurprisingly, for a V8 engine, it's pretty thirsty, with about 20 to the gallon as your average. And I do like the exterior styling of this car. It has a sort of Tonka toy image, but it's safe, it's secure, and offers bags of room for a family. Standard specification is high, and so it should be for £43,000. ABS, 5-speed auto with Tiptronic function if you want to have a play around. Also side airbags, large alloy wheels, and lots more besides. But as you drive along up high, coming towards you in the distance is a sports car. The sun is shining, the top is down, and you begin to wonder whether a Porsche Boxster S might have been a better buy. Well, yes, the Boxster S might well have been a better buy, particularly given that Porsche have just knocked 10% off the prices of all their cars recently. Now that's brought the price of this S down from £42,000 to just over £38,000, which really represents pretty good value for money. Standard on the S, you get 17-inch alloys and air conditioning, but by the time you've added a few extra goodies, it does bump the price up considerably. For instance, most people generally add 18-inch alloy wheels, leather sports seats, a CD player, onboard computer, and so on. And by the time you've done that, they'll be saying that's another £5,000, sir. The Boxster S has only been around since October 1999. The standard Boxster, of course, is brilliant, but the S just gives you that extra icing on top of the cake. The critical figures in terms of performance, 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds, top speed 161 miles per hour, 252 brake horsepower from that 3.2 litre engine, which sounds so sweet and just wants to be revved and revved and revved. The Boxster for me is unlike most other sports cars in that it's very, very usable every day for the commute to work or cruising down the motorway. And if the sun is shining, 12 seconds is all it takes to get the roof up or down. And that also just transforms the car completely. I think it was a very smart and bold move by Porsche to bring down their prices, not before time too, but the market for any Porsche is still very, very strong, with waiting lists for new cars of generally about 8 to 10 months, sometimes even longer. And that means pretty solid residual values remain, something that Porsche have always been good at. To handle the extra power, the S gets larger cross-drill brakes from the 911 and a 6-speed gearbox, along with a revised chassis, which gives this car almost perfect handling. Of course, you buy a car like this to really exploit the handling and speed on your favourite roads, and it is a lot of fun. The gearbox is slick, the engine responsive, and with hardly any hint of either understeer or oversteer. Find that favourite corner or roundabout, and you find yourself pushing that bit further each time. Now, some car magazines would have you think that if you like something, say like the M-Class, you'd also have to consider other cars in the same sort of bracket, like the Range Rover, the Land Cruiser or the Shogun. But hey, no! Why not broaden your horizons out? Think of other possibilities. Cars in different classes, for instance. Find the car that's right for you. If space isn't a problem, consider something like this, the Boxster S. It's fun, it's fast, and it gives you a great tan. A sunbed may be cheaper, but it's far more boring.
Serious off-roading demands a serious machine, something like the tried and trusted Land Rover. But there are two new kids on the block, because Volvo and Audi have come up with two estate cars they say can deliver everything a normal 4x4 can. Both the cars pass the on-the-road test with flying colours. They're handled just like executive saloons, and inside they're a class act. The Audi even gets its own mini TV set and navigation system, and the Volvo boasts a cruise control and an immaculate music system. But the makers claim rather boldly that what sets them apart is their ability to go where previously only 4x4s dare go. Be doing this in the family estate car. This is like swimming in the deep end at the swimming pool, and I never did like the deep end of the swimming pool. The Audi scores heavily with its greater ground clearance, thanks to its unique 4-level air suspension. and its proven Quattro four-wheel drive system conquered everything bar the swamp. Although in fairness, it did get out, eventually, but with an embarrassing leak. The Audi also gets the option of a low-ratio transmission gearbox for the very sticky situations. The ride in the Volvo was the smoothest of the two. It really is incredibly comfortable, even going through this jungle. But the Volvo did suffer through lack of ground clearance, which led to some uncomfortable scrapes en route. Yeah, it clearly has problems. That doesn't sound great. The cost of having the best of all worlds does not come cheap. Both these machines are the other side of £30,000, around £2,000 more than you'd pay for a standard estate. Well, I think it's certainly safe to say that I've taken these two very, very civilised estate cars to an off-road hell they're never likely to experience in whoever buys them. But I still can't figure what the point of them is. If you want an estate, you buy it to load lug. You don't buy it to be a 4x4. That said, they're good. Actually, they're surprisingly good. But not this good.
Join us next week for a special programme when Ginny Buckley reports from the Paris Motor Show on all the latest and greatest from all the manufacturers.